Hello everyone, welcome to the DMV Business Show, and today our special guest is Debra Moser. Debra is the president of MeatCrafters, and she's also the owner and founder of Central Farm Markets. Thank you for coming on the show, Debra.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. So as I was saying offline, I like to start off from the very beginning. Are you originally from the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area?
Well, actually, I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My dad was on an Air Force base there. But then they brought me here when I was 9 months old. So I think technically you can say I'm a Washingtonian.
Yes, I agree.
Been a long time.
When you came here, did you come directly to DC or sort of the outskirts outside of it, or?
Yeah, they came to, in those days, Silver Spring was, there was Washington, DC, and then there was some little outskirts. Silver Spring and Wheaton was about as far as it went. All the things that we know today were not here. So it was a pretty small community. And in those days, Washington was still considered a southern town. So we weren't the metropolitan town we are now. It was still considered part of the South.
Yes, I actually remember, I grew up in DC, and living in DC when we would have school field trips, let's say outside of DC, mostly in Maryland, going to different farms, I would be like, wow, this is farm. Well, back then there was more farm than there are now.
Exactly. I went to high school and there was a farm across the street, and we used to go out and draw the cows in art class. That's how rural, and that was Bethesda.
Wow.
So yeah, it was, this area has changed considerably in the last 50 years. It really has. Yeah.
So I guess growing up, childhood, was that in Silver Spring, Wheaton area in Maryland?
Grew up in Silver Spring, sort of the Silver Spring, Wheaton area, and then we moved to Rockville, where we settled in. And I started high school there, ended up in high school in Bethesda, then ended up at, went to the University of Maryland twice, and got 2 degrees from there. And I've had various careers along the path that that took me to where I am now. So pretty interesting.
Sure. Growing up in Silver Spring before you moved to Rockville, what do you remember as far as what were you into back then, or what interested you?
Well, I was always an art enthusiast, and I was also one of the drama kids in school. And you know, we did all the plays, and good number of my friends went on professionally. I did not, but they did.
Okay.
So I was always involved in the arts and in music and drama.
Okay, great. And as far as arts, is it drawing or more just the arts as far as the drama side of things?
Well, it was painting. I was one of the students that was chosen to go to the Corcoran when I was in the 6th grade. And I was taught by some of the Washington color school artists, some of the very famous artists, who in those days had not become very famous, but they were teaching classes to earn some money. So I got the benefit of some of the most brilliant minds in art. Plus I was there in the 6th grade with college students. So I learned a lot early on. So I painted, I drew, yeah, and I became a graphic designer as a first career.
Okay, okay. And then you said from there you went to Bethesda. Where'd you go, to BCC or another high school there?
I went to WJ.
Okay.
And I graduated from WJ, and then headed to the University of Maryland, where most of us went in those days.
Yeah, here in College Park.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. What did you end up majoring there? You said you received 2 degrees?
Well, I started out as a set design major and switched into graphic design. So that was my first degree. Also did a simultaneous coursework at the Maryland College of Art and Design, which no longer exists. And then later on, after I had children, I went back and I got my teaching degree. So I taught high school photography and art and computer science by default at the high school level. And I taught at Winston Churchill in Bethesda, here in Bethesda, yeah.
Well, was that sort of your first career outside of college, being a high school teacher?
No, my first career was, I was a graphic designer, and I worked, I worked for a couple of small firms, but my plum job in those days was I got hired at Woodward and Lothrop as their assistant art director. And in those days, Hex, Woody's, they all had their own art departments and they did all of their work in-house. So we had a studio on the top floor where we shot everything, all the catalog work. And I was in charge of bringing in the photographers to do a 6-week shoot. And so I would scope out all the great photographers around the country, call them up and say, hey, I've got a catalog to do. And in those days, in the 1970s, we were paying them $40,000 for a 6-week shoot, which was a lot of money. Yeah, it was a lot of money. So I got these great photographers to come in, do these shoots, and then I learned from them because I had always been into photography and had majored in it too in college. So I used that as a way to really learn from the pros, and it took off. And now I do, I'm a sort of a hobbyist or a fine art photographer, if you will.
That's great that you were able to learn from such great people.
It was amazing. It was truly amazing. Some of the people did books and had done some very famous work. So I was on top of the world, always learning lighting and portraiture. And of course we were shooting things like beds and, food in crock pots. But even with that, they were perfectionists and they would do a great job. So I learned a lot about lighting and setting up a shot. So it was a lot of fun.
I still remember Woody's. There was one on 14th Street in DC, and walking there with my parents. Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
it was 14th and an F, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And on the top floor, there were 2 buildings there. And on the top floor, they had this, there was the art studios and all the production below. And then this huge, wonderful studio up on top. And we would all hang out there and, I also learned a lot from, in those days, they did windows and they had the window dressers and the designers. And they would come in and it was just a riot because I worked with them too. And I learned a lot about fashion and they would even tell me how to improve my fashion appearance. So it was a lot of fun.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and then when I left there, I was in those days when you had a child, it was hard to keep a job. So I left there when my first son was born. And that's when I went back to get the teaching credits that I needed. I needed 2 years in addition to the coursework I had done before to get that teaching certification. So.
And once you received that, you went into teaching in high school?
Yes, I taught middle school.
Oh,
and
okay.
I actually had to do a year of kindergarten too. But then I finally they had a freeze on teaching, and then I got a job at the high school level, which I just adored. I loved.
Were you teaching for a while?
I taught for about 12 years.
Okay.
And in teaching, there's only certain paths you can take. So you can become a principal, you can become a school counselor. Neither of those appealed to me. So I went back and got my MBA at Johns Hopkins. And when I graduated from Johns Hopkins, I did that at night while I was teaching during the day and raising 2 kids. And when I graduated from Johns Hopkins, I was one of the first that they hired to teach in the business school right out of a graduating class because I had teaching experience. And I taught at Hopkins, I would say maybe 8 years, 9 years. And then that kind of, I started to move out into the business world, and that took precedence. So.
What were you teaching there at Hopkins, Deborah?
I taught marketing and strategy and strategic business. So one of my loves is building businesses and taking them, from the start to the finish. And so I apologize. I can't seem to get this thing to turn off. So let me see if I can turn this off.
Sure.
I'm not sure it's going to do it though. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So when I got my MBA and I started teaching strategy and production of businesses and how do you create something from the very beginning intrigued me. And that's where I found my sweet spot. So from there, I did some consulting, and I was on the board of a small arts center in Rockville, Maryland, called Rockville Arts Place. And I had decided I was going to get off the board because it wasn't really doing anything. And it was under a basement of a grocery store. And I just said, you know what, I'll do something else. But I walked into a meeting one night and the president at the time of the board said to me, we fired the executive director and we don't have an executive director. Would you mind stepping in for a couple of months just till we find somebody? 10 years and $13 million later, we had a new building because they came to me in Rockville. They were going to tear that whole section down. And they said, eminent domain, go away. And I said, whoa, I know what eminent domain means. And I think you owe us some money. And we sat down and we worked out, we crafted a document really that said we would have, the city of Rockville had one building. And they said to me, we have one building, we can give you some space. I said, how much space do you have? And they said 30,000 square feet. And I said, great. And they said, how much do you want? And I said, 30,000 square feet. And we built, they said, write a business plan. I said, well, I can do that. And I wrote the business plan. From the business plan, the building was designed. And it was designed so that every part of the art center had a cost center. And it could run its own, revenue and expenses, basically. And I did that, and we opened the new building, and the first year was phenomenal. And at that point, my husband, who had sold his share of his business and gotten out of his business, came to me and said, I want to start a farm market. And he had run farm markets when he was a very young man, and he had them. And he decided that in his retirement, he would like to run another farm market. And downtown Bethesda looked like a good place. We knew the people who had the property down there. I had worked with them at Rockville on the Art Center. So we called them up and they thought it was a great idea, but they said, we don't really know anything about running a farm market, so will you do it? And we said, okay. So that's how we ended up with our first farmers market in downtown Bethesda. And today we have three, one in North Bethesda, about 10 minutes away on a different day, and one in Vienna, Virginia. So the farm markets were started very small, and it's a real labor of love running a farmer's market. At the same time we started the farmer's market, he also said to me, well, I had said to him, get a job because you can't stay retired. And he said, well, I've always wanted to make salamis. And I said, great, go make some salami. Never dreaming in my wildest dreams that 10 years, 13 years later, we would have a USDA plant and we would be making and crafting the most unbelievable products they're really good. But the intersection of the farm market and the MeatCrafters company comes that we set up a MeatCrafters stand at the farmer's market. And that's where we could really test our products with the public. And so we had our own little lab going and focus groups going. And that's where we knew whether something would work or not.
This is interesting, Debra. I'm curious, when you started with the Rockville Art Center, are you still a professor at Hopkins, or did you leave that and go into the Rockville Art Center?
I was.
Okay.
So we changed the name to Viz Arts. And so I was teaching at night and I was running that. I love teaching, and it was hard for me to give it up. And also because they're business students and it was grad school, there were real world problems that we could give them. So if there was a case study we wanted to do, or I could give them the art center as a project to work on and come up with things. We had a group, I was teaching also at AU, and we had a group that did a project for the farmers market one year.
Okay.
And looked at, the competition and, all the things that you would look at normally when you start a business. But it's nice to see it from a fresh eye, because when you're in the weeds, you can't see what's going on the outside sometimes. So getting these students involved gave us a new perspective and a different demographic to look at. So they were a lot younger, so it helped.
You just mentioned you love starting and growing a business. Was that the original plan as far as why you went to the MBA?
No. I originally started as a telecom major in the MBA program, and found that a little too constraining for me. And when I got into marketing, what I found in marketing and strategy is it's very much like art. It's very creative. And you think, you strategize, and you create. And there were so many similarities. And somebody came to me once years later and said, I have a degree, a fine arts degree, and I'm thinking about going back to grad school. Should I get an MFA or should I get an MBA? And I said, go for the MBA combination because they're similar. They really, a lot of people don't see that, but they are similar in creativity. So.
That's great. And I'm sure you were able to use, as you mentioned, some of the case studies there as a professor and sort of implement that, whether in the art center or even in the farmer's market, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. It was, we had case studies. We were using Harvard Business School case studies,
Okay.
But then I could assign projects and case studies. And, you know, the midterm didn't have to be a written midterm. It might be a case study. So it worked out very well because it's real world. And that's what we were trying to give them, real world opportunities. I also did the capstone courses with the graduating students. So we'd have big businesses come in, give them a problem, and they had to work a whole semester on how they were going to help that business with that problem, which was also great.
You know, I've never thought until now, actually, you know, I'm sure all of us have gone to farmers market. I've been to a ton throughout my whole life, but I never thought about it as a business. But now that you're mentioning it, so how would that work? So you lease a space from the landlord who owns this property, right?
So it depends on where the space is. For example,
Okay.
our Bethesda market, it belongs to the school system. So they do lease space out. Until we had come along, they had never leased a parking lot. They've leased basketball courts, indoor classrooms, you know, things like that. But when we went to them and we said, we'd like to lease your parking lot, they said, oh, well, we don't have a price for that, but we'll come up with one, which they did. And it works very well because the space it's a Sunday market. So that's the first thing. You also have to, we have about 70 vendors at that market. So that means we have to vet the vendors. We have registration twice a year. We have a full season that runs April through December and a winter season that runs January through March, because it's that one and the Vienna one are year-round markets. So that means we have to register people. They have to be licensed. They have to have insurance. They have to insure and indemnify us. And we have to make sure that their businesses are legitimate. And so we're pretty sticky about that, especially where it comes to health department requirements and things like that. So, and then there's the process of, you know, how do you charge them? Do you charge, and some markets are run by municipalities. They might charge a flat fee for the whole season. We charge based per day percentage of sales. Oh. And so that means that you have to have a, you know, back-end reporting system and ways to collect money. And because we're not going to go around from stand to stand, virtually nobody deals with a lot of cash today. It's mostly credit cards. So we had to build back-end systems that would do scheduling, would record sales, would take credit card payments and things like that. So it really is a business. It is then there's the whole social media part of that and getting the word out and writing the blogs. We have one of our vendors used to work for the LA Times, and she ran restaurants, and so she raises animals now and is quite a dynamic woman. And she writes our blog every week on our newsletter. So there's that, and it's just constant background. We have 3 of us that work the background of the market, as well as then you have staffing at the market and you have to be there. So it's quite intense.
Wow, it definitely is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious, finding the vendors, how do you even find them?
Well, in the beginning, it wasn't easy. We went to some other farmers markets and we said, we're going to start a farmers market. Will you please join our farmers market? 17 vendors took the chance. And I would say most of them are still with us today. We're going on our 16th year in Bethesda. Then it grows, and word of mouth. Vendors are farmers and vendors. They're at a lot of markets. Some of our farmers go to 30 markets a week. Oh, wow. So the last count, I think there were 180 farmers markets in the DMV area. So there's a lot of gossip and chatter that goes on, and somebody will say to somebody, you should call these people because they've got a good market, or you should go over here. So the vendors know what's going on. So that's one way. We also have a website that has information if you're a vendor. I get calls constantly. A lot of people think you just can grow tomatoes in your backyard, set up a tent and sell them. And you could if it's in front of your house, I guess, but you can't do it at a farmer's market like ours because you need to be licensed and insured. And those are and then the prepared food people must, in our markets, must cook in a certified kitchen. That could be a restaurant kitchen or a ghost kitchen. So we need that certification as well. So that costs them money. So it's not a cheap endeavor to get into either.
Sure.
Yeah.
As far as them selecting, as far as I want to be in this location in the farmer's market, or are you the one deciding, okay, this is where we're going to place everyone and this is where you're going to go?
Yeah, it's like merchandising a grocery store. So you don't want to put all of your farms next to each other. That would be, and our farms, when we look for farms, we go down from the northern neck of Virginia all the way up through Pennsylvania. And the reason we do that is it stretches the growing season out. So when strawberries come in the northern neck in their first Pennsylvania hasn't started yet. So we can stretch that growing season out because when they're done with strawberries in the northern neck, Pennsylvania has still strawberries left. So there's a method to our madness. And we want people to have their own space, to look unique, to stand out. Now we do with prepared foods, we will put them together. It sort of becomes a little eatery area,
Okay.
but that works well together because people can look and say, well, the pizza person is over here and we have Ethiopian food over here and we have, dumplings over here. So if they're looking for something to eat or take home, it's right in their purview, but the others we spread out.
Okay, that's great to know. Since you're using the software, as far as you're obviously not collecting and going booth to booth at the end of the day. So do all of them have to have the same software where you're receiving percentage of sales immediately at the end of the day?
No, they have to go log in. They have an account and they log in, they report their sales, and then they get a slip back from the system that will say, based on your sales, this is what you owe for the day, and then they pay by credit card.
Oh, okay. I understand. Okay. So it's basically on good faith. It's like, okay, you're putting the correct sales number and then it's going to, okay.
It's all on faith and trust.
That's good.
It can be good or bad. I would say 98% of the people are truthful. We can tell by the crowd. We can tell by, if you compare numbers, you can see patterns emerge. And so most people, they're there to make a living. This is a living for I would say 99% of the people. Some are hobbyists, but, and they do it as a sideline. They might have another job. We have a lot of high-tech people that have gone into farming. We have people that run, the gal that runs our tea stand, she has a full-time job. So a lot of people have full-time jobs, but do this on the side. And then there are others where they're running big farms and big food businesses. So
okay, so for some people it could almost be a hobby. Obviously, hopefully, it's a profitable hobby at the end of the day.
Right. And we've had some people will try things. It's not an easy business. The food business is not an easy business, whether it's a restaurant or you're trying to get a new product launched, which we can talk about with MeatCrafters. But when they come into the market, it's everybody who develops a product, it could be a juice drink, it could be bakery, they think it's great. And if they're in our market, it usually is. But that doesn't mean it's going to appeal to everybody. And so what we think is really great might be a flop at the market. And over the years, we've had a few people go out of business. Most of the time, it's due to lack of help. They can't get help. And so running markets, if you want to run multiple markets and be in multiple markets, you need help. And that means having a car, picking up the produce or the drink juice or whatever it is you're selling, getting to market, setting up, standing there in the heat or the freezing rain, or the cold, and then going back. So it's not for sissies. It's a tough job sometimes.
Deborah, do you have any stories where you've seen someone just start off in the farmer's market, one or several in the area here, and then they've scaled and grown the business to, I don't know, whether direct to consumer or have their own physical location somewhere?
Both, and both have happened. We've had several that have created such unique products that they're on the store shelves now at Whole Foods. So once you go into production like that, and a lot of them get co-packers, but once a product is a hit like that, that's usually when they will back out of the farmers markets. It becomes too labor intensive to do that on the weekends and run a business during the week. So we've had a number of those who have had products that have launched and gone onto the shelves. The other is, yes, they've opened restaurants too. And that on the prepared food side or the bakery side, that's a huge dream. We've had 3 or 4 bakers open their own bakeries. And it might be a gluten-free, it might be a regular bakery, but sometimes those are a little easier to still do the markets because they can bake it and then bring it, or they can bake it and send somebody to bring it. But often we've had people that have opened maybe a little shop somewhere. Maybe it's, dumplings or something else like that, empanadas or something, and they open a shop and then they open another shop. So we like to think that sometimes the farmers markets are like the push carts of the early 1900s, because they're starting little businesses, and then we are actually helping to incubate them and grow. So we do a lot of work with the vendors, marketing, sales. We can guide them. We can help them with, if they need website design, we send them to people we know and things like that. So we've got our hands, we want to see them succeed. So we've got our.
So besides the farmers market, are there any workshops or anything like that, as far as you're mentioning now, you're guiding them, advising them as far as what to do, how to help the business grow? There
are several organizations in the DMV area. You have the Virginia Farm Market Association. They hold courses and they have courses. You have, I sat on the board of CASA, Chesapeake Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture, and they do a beginning farmer program. If you are interested in becoming a farmer, they choose a class of beginning farmers, and they will start training you, and you get to work on farms where the real seasoned people are and learn. And one of the biggest problems today with our farming, especially, it's all over the country, but a lot in this area too, is soil health, and the focus on soil health and maintaining good soil so that we don't lose our ground. And farms are disappearing. So, it's critical we take care of those that we have.
Sure. From I guess your perspective and managing and having the farm, is it better for you overall, more economical to collect a certain percentage of the sales, or is it a flat fee for everyone? And I'm sure it may vary depending on season too, right?
Yeah, and it's for us, it's better to collect the percentage. Now we have a base. So if you don't make that base, we charge you a flat fee, and it's very. If it snows and nobody comes to the market that day and your sales are horrible, we don't charge people. We take into account the humanity of this as well. If there's a death in the family, if there's a birth, we don't charge you if you don't come to the market. We do expect you to be there most of the year, but things happen. And COVID was a real eye-opener for us, because we had to really change our business model, where we had chefs demos and music and all of those things. Those all went away, and we had to put in COVID protocols and really slam into this, because the governor said, stay open, you're a food source. And so we had to have people come in by lines, and of course masks. And in the beginning it was don't touch the produce. Now, towards the end that kind of loosened up a little bit. But we hired people, and we put in a drive-through so that you could go directly to the vendor, order what you wanted. We had concierge people that would run around, pick it up, and put it into your car, into your trunk, so you didn't have to get out of the car, you didn't have to touch it. We also started a home delivery service, which we just ended the end of May because it had fallen off so much because people are coming back to the markets. So it was a turn on a dime, which as a small organization you can do, and put into place what needs to be done to save the business and save. It wasn't just us; it was 70 other people's businesses too. So, and they say, yeah.
And I'm sure with COVID, Deborah, you noticed a big drop off when COVID started, right? As far as just the people coming in and even the businesses want.
Actually, what happened was it dropped off, but those people that were coming in started, it was almost like hoarding. And the meat people couldn't keep up. They were selling out of meat. The bread people couldn't. People were coming in and buying tons. Well, you couldn't get meat at the grocery stores.
Sure.
Because they had the big meat companies, the big commercial meat companies had been hit hard. So they were starting to hit the farmers markets real big, and we would have people selling out. We have never seen numbers like that in the winter, and people were, selling out. Then that slowly, as we started to get more informed about COVID and people got less scared, it started to even out. And so, but the numbers stayed up because people felt this is a safe place to go. It's outside. I can go outside, and we had lines and we kept people 6 feet away. And so they felt safe and comfortable. So,
okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get vendors wanted to open a stand and sell toilet paper or something?
No, we didn't have any of that. We did have a couple of vendors who refused to wear masks, so they had to leave.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
they were not buying into it. And fortunately, they left quietly. They just said, I'm just not going to do this. So, and we did have some vendors that didn't come for a long time because maybe they had somebody at home that was immune compromised. So we said, fine, we'll hold your spot. We'll just get through this together, and we're not going to, do anything drastic here.
How far into opening your first farmers market was MeatCrafters established?
I would say right away, because they
Okay.
both started at the same time. And it was so fortuitous because we really could test things out and say, does this sausage, is this great? Is this salami? And we had a funny story once. We use fennel pollen in our fennel salami, not fennel seed. Fennel seed goes in a sausage, not a salami. So you get a very mild back end flavor on the fennel salami. Well, we got the powder in, and it goes into, when you make a batch of salami, it's 300 pounds at a time. In goes the pollen that we thought it was. Out comes the salami 6 weeks later. We taste it. We all look at each other, and this is not fennel. Turned out it was dill.
Wow.
Dill pollen. And it gave the salami this beautiful little buttery taste. But we figured a lot of people don't like dill. We'll take it to the market. We'll sell it at the market. We'll see what the response is. It was such a hit. It became it's called our Dillio salami. It stayed on the menu, and to this day we still make it, but people loved it. If we had decided to throw out that meat and just say, oh, it was a mistake, we never would have known that it could be a hit like that. So it was a really nice testing ground. Plus you could talk to people and they would say, this is really great. I love this with white wine. And you start to build your repertoire that way.
Sure. So you started MeatCrafters at the farmers market then, right? As far as testing it.
Testing it out. We did have our plant. We had merged with a small sausage company, and he had always wanted to make salamis. And we said, well, here we are. And we had to order curing rooms from Italy. It took 4 months for them to come over by boat. Then they had to be set up. So they sent people from Italy who spoke no English. So we employed a friend of ours from upstate New York to come down. He speaks fluent Italian, to work with us so that we could get these curing rooms up. All of the production, all of the curing is done in computerized rooms now. So what used to be done in grandma's attic in Italy or France is now done in computerized rooms. So we can control, you have to control for temperature and water, the water amount of water that's leaving. That's how salamis dry out, and the culture that we use and things like that. So it's quite scientific, and but again, a very creative outlet, because we create all these great recipes that we are selling to restaurants. We do custom work for restaurants. A lot of the times restaurants will say made in our house. It's really made in our house. But we're custom doing work for them because their production is so great they couldn't do it in a restaurant kitchen. So we do that. We do work for farmers who will bring us their animals or their meat once it's been processed. We'll make salamis and sausages for them. So there's a lot of creativity that goes in this, and we're very proud of we are the only charcuterie USDA approved company in the DMV Pennsylvania area. It takes a lot to get approved by the USDA to be able to make these kinds of products.
But you didn't start off with that approval, right?
Well, we had to, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what we did was we had the USDA approval for sausages, but salamis and cured meats are a different thing. That's where they get a little antsy about how are you curing? Because if you do it wrong, you're going to get people sick. There's no question about it. So for people who like to, that are hobbyists and make it in their house, that's great, but be careful. You have to be careful and you have to know what you're doing. But on a large production scale where you're selling, you're going to have a license to sell, obviously. And so we had to write a HACCP plan. And a HACCP plan, it's about this big, and it tells the USDA all of our protocols and how we are going to keep you safe, and we're going to keep the meat safe. And of course, being a USDA plant, we have to trace everything. We know where our meat comes from. We only buy small family farm meat. And so we know where everything is coming from. We trace it. The traceability is right there. We only can produce with the USDA inspector on site. So all federal holidays, we're closed down. So, there's a lot to it. And then building a production, we have freezers, we have refrigeration, we have processing rooms, our spices are all ground every day. So we have a spice room. And then we have, all the other space, the office space and things like that. So it was quite a production to put this together.
Well, where's your plant located?
It's in Landover, Maryland.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Not too far.
Yeah. And
we do tours. We did a lot to the public before COVID hit. Once COVID hit, we had to close the plant down to outside tours. But we will bring a buyer in if they are interested in purchasing, for a store or something. We'll give a tour. But right now we're keeping it closed to the public. But it's quite fascinating to see how these products are made.
Yeah, I would be interested to take a tour. How big is your plant, by the way, in Landover?
8,000 square feet.
Okay, that's great. So right now you're not doing tours at this time?
We're not doing them to the public, but if you call me,
yeah, okay.
We'll suit you up. We put hairnet on, we put the coats on. Again, we want everything safe. There's some things you can't do, some things you can, places you can go. So, but it is fun. I've actually gotten in on the production. I've helped make some of those sausages one day, and it was a lot of fun and a lot of work. And it starts at 6 a.m. So if you're an early riser, it's a great job.
That's great. Okay. Wow. The whole MeatCrafters, how is that as far as just that brand? How has that grown from the very beginning?
Well, MeatCrafters started out very small. The brand has grown amazingly over the last 2 or 3 years. We are in stores, we do retail, we do wholesale. We just hired our first full-time salesman, which is really exciting. And we ship, we sell online. And last year when COVID hit, we had just built our system to go online. And that's when everything went down and all of our restaurant work dried up overnight, but our online sales went through the roof. So that was really fortuitous. And towards the middle of last year, the fourth quarter, we went on to Amazon. So we sell direct to the customer that way, to the consumer. We sell wholesale, we sell retail, we have institutional packs. So we have places that will order from us that don't get it packaged, but get it in bulk. We ship all over the country. It's a little hard to ship we have to ship only on 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, because our products are frozen and need to be refrigerated or frozen. Like the salamis will come in cold. So everything is on dry ice, and it has to be shipped in a container within a box. So shipping has gotten quite expensive. It's not easy. With the raise in all of the online things, FedEx has raised their prices, and UPS has raised their prices. So we get a lot of comments about why is it so much to ship, and we try to do some fun things like order $100 and it's free shipping. But we're still struggling with the shipping around the country in terms of working with those kind of companies.
Okay, I understand. For the retail locations, where are you? What stores are you in?
We are in Balducci's, which was just bought by King's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know that. We're in Yes Organic.
Okay.
We were in Mom's. We're going back in Mom's. We had to change some products out. And then we're in a lot of local beer and wine shops. The charcuterie does very well in those kinds of shops. I'm trying to think of all the places. And then some institutions, a lot of restaurants, and that's also coming back big time now. So we've ramped up production. We're in co-ops. There are several co-ops around the area. I think there's one right near Greenbelt. We're going to be in that one. And so we're branching out that way.
That's great. Debra, how does your day-to-day look since you're involved in different businesses?
It's crazy.
I bet.
It is crazy. I try to divide the week up, and I know what I need to do for the farm market. So I do those at specific times. And we really haven't had any emergencies to speak of, or things that will come out of the ordinary. The farm market is pretty much, I can count on it to be the same each week.
Mm-hmm.
The meat company is much different, and that requires more hands-on. I took over as president last year, and that means really revamping a lot of things, from pricing to strategies to where do we want to focus. With shipping being a problem, do we want to only focus on the East Coast right now till we can get a third party out west somewhere, which is very difficult to do because there isn't many of them, and everybody wants freezer space or wants, to have a third party shipper that can do food. So these are the things you get into on a day-to-day basis. There were food shows that we were going to, trade shows. Those went virtual, so we do some of those. But there is the first in-person ones in Philly in September, so we'll be at that. That's the Natural Products Food Show, because our products are natural and have no preservatives or anything in them. So we're classified under that, gluten-free, most of them. So, it's looking at all the opportunities, where our growth can be, how do we ramp up? Because as more business comes on, it's not just, I can't just say to them, okay, here's a new customer and they want 600 pounds of sausages. Just, can you do that? There's production schedules, there's all sorts of things. And then the recordation every time of each batch that we make. So all the paperwork that goes on behind this for the USDA. So it's quite labor intensive. We've got a great team. We were pleased that we didn't have to lay anybody off during COVID. We kept everybody employed, and they're just a great team. They do what needs to be done. We did hire one person, and that was to handle our shipping department, because now we have a shipping department because we're doing so much online work. So.
How big is your team now at MeatCrafters? I know you say you just hired someone from shipping and sales as well. How does that look like now?
So now there are 13 of us.
That's
and
great.
It's a small team, but mighty things come out of a small team, and everybody's focused. Our head production guy was the head chef for Jose Andres.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we have talent. we have dedication, we have, and we love our people and they love what they do and they do a great job. And anybody in our organization, and I always say this, everybody's a salesperson. Everybody, if you see an opportunity, let's go for it. And so we don't have a hierarchy of you can't do this and you can't do that. Now, there are some things, obviously, I can't go into the production room and create salamis myself. I know how it's done. I've done it with them, but I'm not going to do it alone. So, little things like that. But
sure. I'm glad you mentioned your team, and having the right team and the right people in the right roles is very important. How do you go about finding them, especially the talent you're telling me that you have there on board?
Well, the production team that does the actual work, they've been with us since the early days of the first sausage company. Our plant manager and production manager, he came to us, he worked for us at MeatCrafters, and he at the stands at the market, and then he needed a job. He was working on Capitol Hill, and his senator he was working for passed away, so he needed a job, and he was thinking of going to law school. And we said, well, why don't you come out and work with us? We could use some extra help. And that was 8 years ago, and today he is a junior partner in the business.
Oh, that's great. So, totally different career field than what he was before.
Totally. And I am one of the biggest advocates that you can take your talents and your knowledge from one career to another. And I've seen it done. I've done it myself. And he's done it very successfully. Then we had to hire somebody else in the office to handle, like I said, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of recordation and a lot of in phone calls, and who's going to answer the phones when people call and want orders, and how do you do this, and explaining the production. So the two of them run the front of the house, so to speak. And then the production team's in the back. Then we hired this guy for sales, and he's a seasoned salesman, and he is doing a bang up job. And then we hired the person that we hired for shipping. And he also works our stands on the weekends. So everybody has an intimate knowledge of the products, of what it takes to create them, we want everybody to really have buy-in to this company and know that should we ever do anything with the company, they're part of it, and they will succeed just like we would. So
it sounds like you've created a great culture there.
It is. It's a great team. I love working with people and seeing them happy and seeing them succeed. So
what would you say drives and motivates you today?
I love seeing businesses grow. I don't know where that came from. I really don't, because as you know, in my early days, that wasn't my forte, but I love to see if you can make something happen. And I love a challenge, and the bigger the challenge, the better I like it to see if I can figure it out. And this MeatCrafters has been a real challenge. There have been some, we have problems sometimes with packaging, and the machine doesn't work, or the die cutter doesn't work, and air gets into the packages and we have to throw things out. But how do you figure out problems like that? How do you figure out where you're going to be in the market space when there are other products out there like that? And I get asked all the time, why are yours different? And the answer is, we have great products and we care about them, and they are high quality products, and you can taste the difference. So those are some of the problems I love tackling. I just love seeing this go, into the stratosphere.
I love that. I agree with you too. I love seeing businesses grow. It just reminded me, I had a conversation the other day with a client that I put into a space in Northern Virginia. It was a short-term deal that the landlord decided to go with, and he'd expanded 3 times in just a 12-month period. And he was like, it was amazing. He was like, my Instagram followers went from a couple thousand to I think over 20,000. And in just a 12-year period, he's now triple the size in another shopping center in Northern Virginia. But right. It's great to see that.
And you hit on an important point. I mean, the social media has become such a big part of these businesses that while Instagram won't create sales for you per se, But the awareness and building that awareness is so critical. We have a team in Florida that handles all of our online advertising, and we have a team in the Midwest that handles all of our Amazon, because Amazon it's very difficult to work with. And if you're a novice like I am about how do you sell on Amazon, it really pays to have a team behind you that's done it, has either worked at Amazon or has worked with them and knows how to get your products up, takes care of them, advertises them, and knows how to, I get a call each week. Do you want to run a special for Father's Day? Do you want to do this? So I'm working with those teams as well, and creating those kinds of atmospheres. And there's a lot. So we're kind of spread out around the country too.
That's good. Speaking about business growth, and you've dealt with businesses going from the farmer's market and even to your own MeatCrafters. What advice would you give, Deborah, if someone came up to you, whatever it may be, maybe they're starting in the farmer's market or any type of business, they wanted to start their own business. What are a few pointers that you think important that individual should know?
Well, I think, first of all, if it's something like a product from the farmer's market, if by the time they get to the farmer's market, somebody has tested that out, whether it's with family and friends or something, and they know, farmers know what they can grow, but a food producer knows, well, gee, everybody loves my baking, so maybe this is a good thing. You get to the test level, you get to the public level, and that's where you're going to find out, does this work? And what I would say to people, and this is the best advice I can give you, is if you have a passion, don't let anybody talk you out of it. It might cost you some money. It might, it's hard to start up. It's hard work, but if you have a passion, go for it. And don't let anybody tell you you can't. And if it's your decision to not do it, that's one thing, but go for it and try it. You never know. I mean, some of the, we have a gal that did a salad dressing. It was her mother's recipe. And she's brilliant. She was a photographer. I think she did video production or something. She started her mother's recipe, and she started in her house, and then it moved out of her house to a production kitchen. And then, now she's on the store shelves. Never, she's a single mom, never expected in her wildest dreams to be on store shelves. But she kept plugging at it, and one thing leads to another, and it starts to grow. So follow your passion and enjoy it and have fun, because if you don't have fun, you're not gonna be successful. You have to have a deep appreciation and fun for your business.
Yeah, I agree. It's the journey to get you there. And I'm curious that story you just mentioned about the salad dressing, is she's now doing this full time, running her salad dressing company?
Oh, yes. And she's quite successful and quite an interesting person. But that's the type of people that we have had come through the market. It's amazing. Some of our farmers, they have things on their farms like biomass feeders where they're reusing wood to fuel the greenhouses. They have to be, all of the farm equipment today is computerized, technologically advanced. So these farmers really have to be up on knowledge, and they have to love what they're doing, because farming is extremely hard. If you think starting a food business is hard, starting a farm is even harder. So,
What would you say is your biggest challenge right now in your role at MeatCrafters?
Getting to the next level. That's where we're at. We have hit a level where we are now having to look at, how do we scale up? How do we do this? How big do we want to get? How much work do we want to do? How do we tell people some of our smallest accounts that only wanted 100 pounds of something, we're having to turn away now because we're doing much larger. So that's, we hate to do that, but it's the scalability and where are we going and how much can we do? And we're looking at, do we have to put on a second shift, which requires another USDA manager there for a second shift and run a second shift. We run a shift now 6 to 2:30 or 3. And do we put on another one 4 to 10 at night?
Wow.
So these are, this is where it's the fork in the road, and you say, which way are we going to go? And, how do we do this? And is everybody on board with this? Does everybody want to see it grow this way? So we involve everybody in decision making, and you'd be surprised when your whole team gets together. And I'm always looking for answers from them. You know, I don't go in giving answers. I look for the answers from them because they see things I'm not going to see, and they hear things I'm not going to hear. So they're my eyes and my ears out into the world. And I get some really good advice sometimes.
I love the fact too, Debbie, that you're open to the input of the team.
Oh yeah, it's critical in any business. If you run a top-down business, you're not going to succeed today. That's not how, you know, most of the younger people coming through the ranks today are used to working in teams. And they were taught that way in school, all the way through school, through college. It's always team projects, team building. So they're quite used to this. So if you're running a business and you say, I'm the boss, listen to me, you're not going to succeed. People want to feel they're part of the business, and you want them to, because they are that's your team. That's how you're going to make anything happen. And if you're sitting there and you want to work alone, then work alone. But if you want to create a business and see it grow, you're going to need a team of people that are talented, dedicated, and feel like they own part of the business.
Yeah. Well, if you're considering having another shift, that means the demand and the growth is there, right? It
is. And it's a little daunting when you see this happening, because you just, where am I going to go with this? But we're being very logical about it, and we're looking at all of our options and what do we want to produce? Where are the opportunities? Charcuterie is very big today. It has taken off in so many ways. So people are doing cheese and charcuterie platters, and people are making businesses out of it. There are two here in Washington that they will create your charcuterie platter for you and deliver it for your parties. So out of that has come more demand. And if that's the demand, where is it out in the greater world? And it turns out it's out there too. So we're looking at all sorts of different things. Food service is a huge, huge business. And with the change, my personal feeling is that the white tablecloth restaurants are not going to come back that quickly, but the more casual, the more what we've seen during COVID, you can take it out. You can even take your drinks out sometimes. Those things I think are here to stay. So there's going to be maybe a lot more turnover in a restaurant if you can take out, or you have outdoor seating, or you're catering. So some of those things are things that we're looking at as well.
When do you remember what year was MeatCrafters established?
We established MeatCrafters in 2010. I think that was the official, yeah.
So going on to 11, 12 years almost, okay.
Right. And to see it move like this in a year and a half, 2 years is astounding.
That was going to be my next question, Deborah. So what do you think in the past, 12 to 24 months? It sounds like right now you're at an inflection point that you're going like this. So in the past, compared to 10, 12 years ago when you opened, do you think there was a change in the market or something you were doing that you're now going through this inflection point?
Yeah, I think the market has changed. What's interesting is plant-based food has made great inroads, but meat production and meat consumption has grown. And the ways it has grown is that people are looking at healthier options and more sustainability. So they're looking at smaller companies. They're looking at where the meat comes from, who's growing it, how is it produced? Are there antibiotics in the meat, or are there other things? So I think that drove part of the health, the focus on health drove that. I don't know what really drove the meat market to go up. I'm not sure why that happened. We were watching very carefully as plant-based grew, but some of the products out there, plant-based products, maybe don't taste so good. And we've seen that at the shows, so the trade shows. So we decided to focus on what we do best and make it the best we could. And we know that our products are really good. And the market has just responded beautifully. And like I said, charcuterie has become hot. The restaurants like to serve charcuterie boards. People like to have them in their homes. And I also think we're going to see more home entertaining, smaller groups, more intimate groups. And so there's that opportunity. Catering companies are starting to come back. Weddings and events are coming back. So they're looking at what can we put out, and so that's another place where we come in, is providing food for that as well.
Okay, so you think overall it's just I guess the market has expanded and therefore your business has increased as well.
I think so. I do think so. And I think also because we're a boutique, we're good, we're not a commodity meat producer. And I think people have responded really positively.
Okay. Well, I guess with the new interest in the market, you've also had to let people know, hey, I'm here. This is what I do. So have you changed anything internally as far as, I don't know, marketing, sales, or advertising, just to let people make aware that you're there?
We do. We advertise heavily on Google, on Facebook, on Amazon. And we have the team that I have in Florida that's handling all of our advertising. We have letters that go out, online letters to our customers. We're constantly running specials. We put boxes together for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we brought in, that was a lot of fun. We brought in some other producers from our farm market. So we had chocolate in there, we had a cheese producer in there, and those went out for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So once you start to look at where your market base is and who are your customers, and we're getting very good feedback. We get a lot of feedback. I know there's a lot of controversy about your information on Amazon, but we're getting a lot of data that says, who's buying our products, so that we can gear ads to them and we can focus on platforms maybe and advertising where they are. So it might be that we have a magazine in DC called Edible DC. Yes. We advertise in Edible extensively. They've written us up. So there's a lot of cross communication that goes on with all of our marketing, but we have ramped it up really big.
Okay, that's good. What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your business career?
I wish I'd known I loved building businesses. And I think I couldn't have gotten here without the background I had. I had to take that road and I had to get here at a later point in life. But on the other hand, I come with a lot of knowledge that, I've attained over the years. So I could put that to use. And I have a lot of energy, and I just wish I had known I could do this early on.
Yeah, I can definitely tell the passion is there for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I really do.
What does the future look for the farmers market, for MeatCrafters? What is the vision for the next, 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think the farmers markets are pretty stable, and as long as everybody likes having us, and we're welcome on the properties, and the community likes having us. They do love to shop. You will find that people shop within their communities. And so they become like little town halls, and people will come, or I should say town greens. They'll come, they see their friends. We're opening it back up now. We have table seating outside, and you can sit and chat and, have a cup of coffee. I don't think those are going to go anywhere unless, like I said, something happens with one of the properties, and then we'd have to move the market if we choose to. As far as MeatCrafters goes, that's a totally different ball game. We're looking at our growth strategies, and we're looking at what are the possibilities for this business. Do we go it alone? Do we partner with another business? There are all sorts of interesting things that are coming out of this. So we're looking at all options and seeing which direction we'll take.
A lot of growth, though.
A lot of growth. And it just, some days I go to bed and I think, wow, where did this come from? But you don't realize the little steps that you're taking along the way start to work, and they start to, and there was a silver lining in COVID. People needed food. So for us being in the food business, it was helpful. I know on the other side, the restaurant side, they lost a lot of people and are having terrible time getting people back. So, it wasn't so good for them. But I think that if we all just put a plow down and put our heads down, we'll make it through this.
Yeah. And it sounds like too, Deborah, that all of this was long-term because, you see all these things, especially now online, everything, not an overnight success, but, now you've been with MeatCrafters for 11 plus years and maybe the past 12, 24 months. I'm sure there was growth through all that time, but now you're seeing it.
And
And
yeah, it's really interesting. I heard an actor say once, yeah, I was a 20-year overnight sensation. And that's what it feels like. You've been doing these steps, but really the last 2 years, we took a harder focus strategy wise and looking at it. And like I said, I really took over last year on the day-to-day operations of really focusing on that strategy. And that's when we started to see movement. So it takes a real hands-on approach. And yeah, we're an 11-year overnight growth sensation.
there you go.
Yeah.
When you're not busy running these businesses, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, I am a photographer, and I just took some time out. I was in a show up in East Hampton, New York. So I had about 8 or 9 photographs in that exhibit. And so I like that. I also have 6 grandchildren that I like to hang out with when I can see them. And we just love gardening and traveling, and cut back obviously on the traveling. But so those are some that we have very full lives, and not ready for retirement yet.
No, not at all. Of course. Is any family in the business or no?
No.
Okay.
No, it's very funny. All of our children are doing something else, and they had no desire, and I think it's better that way. I do. I think they have their own things. We have this, and someday we'll be free maybe to babysit more, but they're getting by.
Yeah, there you go. Deborah, where can people find out more information about you and all the different businesses, whether Central Farm Market and MeatCrafters?
Yeah, you can go to our centralfarmmarkets.com website, and we have everything there. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get a weekly newsletter from the farm markets, what's going on, who has what's coming in. Blueberries are just starting to come in, so we're excited about that. And then on the MeatCrafters side, meatcrafters.com, that's not only an informational site, but you can order online through that site. So you'll see all of our products. You can read about us and see the whole team.
That's great. Deborah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.